Okay. Today, it's a pleasure for me because I have here Daniel Vassallo, and I know that I pronounced that well because he is from Malta. Now he lives in the United States. We have also the same T-shirt of the same color. How are you, Daniel?
Very good, Francesco. Thanks for having me. Good to meet you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you here. And of course, we'll talk about him, his story as a developer. You were a developer, but you are welcome anyway on this channel. So we'll talk about maybe a little bit about your past. And of course, I want to talk about your book, your first book, second book, future plans. So we have a lot of things to talk about. So Daniel, I'd like to hear your story as a developer. Why did you get started? Why did you stop? Yeah, so something about that.
Yeah,
Yeah, please.
absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I think my start as a developer was quite typical. I enjoyed tinkering with computers pretty much since I was a young child, right? And I sort of started enjoying programming in my teens. I initially, thinking that I might want to create my own games like many people do, and sort of eventually evolved into studying computing and got my first few couple of jobs back in Malta, working in small companies doing various programming things. At one point, I felt that I started feeling a little bit that I might be missing out. And back then, this was sort of 2008, 2009. Social media wasn't what it is right now, but there were sort of popular bloggers at the time that were talking about experiences working at big companies like Microsoft and Google and other places. And sort of long story short, I decided I wanted to try that, and I sort of became quite determined to try to see if I can find a way to go work at a big company. And the funny thing is that before that, I always considered myself somebody who would very likely not be a good fit at a big company. Like, I don't like the bureaucracy and sort of the hard, rigid structures that I always imagined one would find in places like this. But I think sort of I figured it might be a good trade-off to test it out at least. It's not a big risk. You could always go back and do something different. And anyway, long story short, I took the plunge about 10 years ago in 2010, and I applied at Amazon, and somehow I got accepted as an entry-level developer. So this was the very basic sort of level. And initially, to be honest, I found that I think the first couple of months were quite a bit hard. I was in a team with other 5 people. They were talking in terms that I could barely understand. And even the most sort of simple tasks, like upgrading a dependency and things like that, there was so many different and sort of internal tools and things that I was absolutely not familiar with. I just sort of struggled a bit, which later I realized almost everyone does in sort of these kinds of places. But I think eventually it started to work out quite well, and over the months, I started to learn a lot, right? Lots of new things, building different types of software, much more fundamental than what I was used to before. Before I was doing regular web applications at websites, writing some front-end code and some data, doing some SQL and those kinds of things. Sort of at Amazon, I found myself actually building databases, right, and building something more foundational. At least contributing to it, right? I wasn't back in the early days doing anything that significant, but sort of part of the team doing those kinds of things. Sort of long story short, I think I can sort of, because I ended up spending 8.5 years at Amazon. So I joined in Ireland. Then a couple of years later, I moved to Seattle in the United States, which is where I still am right now. I think after a couple of years, the amount of things that I was learning started to diminish quite quickly. Like you get to, you always keep learning, obviously, right? But there's like this curve where you start feeling like you've seen most of the things, and it was a point in my career where initially I thought this was it, because I got promoted twice. I mean, I was getting compensated, did extremely well, way beyond my wildest expectations. Like, I moved to the US, like things were working really well by many traditional metrics. But I had started sort of feeling my motivation decrease quite a bit, like it often happens. So I went to this period where I went from thinking this was, I should probably just stay in tech, stay in sort of big tech and continue this type of career, maybe move to another company or maybe another team within the company to try to sort of randomize things a little bit. But then I think something happened to me. I think maybe I was 4 years into it, where I think I realized that even if I moved teams, moved to a different company, changed things a little bit, almost certainly what was the reason that was my motivation was diminishing was unlikely to return. Maybe it might bump up a little bit, just the new novelty of doing something different. So I think I probably came to the conclusion that probably a career as a full-time employee in big tech wasn't the ideal one for me. And it took me probably another two or 3 years, like, to actually take the plunge and leave, right? Because things, it was still quite a consequential move in my head to give all that up.
Yeah, sometimes you just say, maybe I'm just a bit tired. Let's try another month, another 2 months.
I think there was a point where there was a period definitely where I was wondering and going between, I mean, should I leave this behind? Should I just try some other things? Should I mix things? But then I think there arrived at a point where I almost was convinced 100% that now it's just a matter of time. I just need to find the right time to leave. Basically, to be honest, I mean, I have to admit, at some point, the last probably couple of years were mostly financially driven. I mean, I was getting paid so well that I was wondering, I mean, should I just do another couple of years and save more money before I leave? So there was lots of that as well. And if I had stayed more, it was, again, almost hate to admit it, but almost purely for financial reasons, just to save a bunch of money, do another year and and leave. But I think I started to realize the danger that if I kept postponing forever, it might never happen. So pretty much at the end of 2018, it was good timing because there was a project I was working on for the last couple of years. We finished it, we released it at reInvent, which is happening right now in 2020, but back then of 2018. And pretty much I took a month off for Christmas, and then I came back and gave my notice without having anything concrete about what I was going to do next. So that was probably something. But when I tell other people, they tell me, "Wow, that's a bold move." I don't think it was that risky, because you could always go back, right? I mean, that's probably one of the nice things we have in tech. I mean, even if I was completely okay not going back at Amazon, right? But it's unlikely that you're not going to find a way to make a living if you have sort of development skills of some sort.
Yeah, and also I've heard that you said a lot of times the word motivation, so you lost a little bit of motivation on top of because sometimes I think that it's hard to find motivation every day. If you are falling off, maybe you can find for 1 day, 2 days, but after a while, it gets really hard to find motivations in things that maybe you really don't want to do forever. Maybe you don't want that to do that for 20 years. Yeah,
absolutely. No, and I think this is what I think, sort of now transitioning to sort of self-employment, I think this is probably the biggest win I've achieved, right? Is in that, I mean, when you're working full-time with a single company, you're always working on somebody else's terms, right? You always have to do what the company needs or what is most important, right? There's little for you to sort of self-determine based on what you feel like doing, right? And I know sort of motivation, I hear from many other people like that gets a bad reputation almost, right? That it's something that we should almost fight. That I have a very different view. I actually feel like if I'm feeling demotivated, I think it's an important signal from something deep in my head telling me that, not always. So there are situations in modern life that sometimes you don't feel like doing something, but you have to do it. It's important. But I think just fighting it by default is probably quite dangerous, right? Because it will likely lead us to spending a lot of time, energy, and other things to a destination where we end up realizing that this is not what we really wanted. Right? It seems like we have some complex CPU in our head, right, that we can barely understand.
I like that.
That's like guiding us to, like, it's like it can compute things in a way that we can barely understand. Right? It's like our subconscious. And I think all these sort of motivation, procrastination, sort of the energy that you feel when you're inspired to do something, sort of they tend to come from that way. And I think basically now my new arrangement is, and we can talk about some of the things, is that sort of I've been trying to find a way such that the work that I'm doing is almost primarily driven by what motivates me, right? What I don't want to be doing something. I'm completely happy leaving money on the table. I'm completely cognizant that I could be doing much more money if I stayed there or if I did something else. It's sort of something that it's easier said than done, I'll admit, right? But sort of I got comfortable with. But I think the biggest improvement to my lifestyle is the ability, right, to just wake up every morning and choose what I want to do based on what I feel mostly motivated to do. And it's great. Like it's almost been 2 years since I left, and I think my biggest sort of approach now is that I'm trying to make sure that I never need to go back to sort of the type of career that I had before. That I like this arrangement so much that I would like to keep it forever.
Yeah, and I think that many of us, because I think that you have a quite big following, but I don't know that if you care so much about the number of people following you. But I really like your mindset. I think that you have the right mindset that we should all have. I can't remember the exact words, but you said something about lifestyle driven life, something like that. I can't remember the exact word. Can you talk about that? Because I loved that tweet.
It's I can't remember exactly, but I think it's something about sort of lifestyle first, like sort of arranging and designing your lifestyle first, and then sort of work comes. Basically, I think the realization, to summarize, is that I noticed, and this actually was me a while ago, but I noticed it a lot in lots of people in tech, is that many people have a big idea. They want to do something interesting, something big, something ambitious, right? And sort of, and they go in at all costs, right? Especially people that are not employed anymore. They start with an idea first, and then they arrange their life in such a way to make that idea possible. They might relocate, they might live, sort of sacrifice a lot of their lives and their sort of free time to just make that idea a reality. I like to take a completely opposite approach, where I start with my ideal lifestyle first. I have a family now as well. I have 2 kids, right? So I enjoy doing other things apart from just working and writing code and doing other things. So and most of all, I like the freedom and sort of the liberty, and as we've been saying before, like the sort of flexibility. I think this is something that's a bit different, that I don't hear many people talk about it. It's not completely my own original idea, but it's something that I've been living to, is that you start imagining your ideal lifestyle, and then you start making incremental changes to how you work and what you do to try to make that lifestyle possible. And then work becomes something that just, you do it for the main purpose of enhancing your lifestyle. And I think actually, this also helps with motivation, right? Because it's when you're doing something very, very, very ambitious and very abstract, and it's a long-term goal, it's very hard to get motivated, because you're always wondering, am I wasting lots of energy for nothing? It might never happen. Whereas I think if you're sort of going after lower hanging fruit and things with shorter feedback loops, that they're just you're convinced that if they work out, they will improve your lifestyle very significantly, I think it's just much easier to do them, right? Which sort of we can mention, like, this is one of the things that I tried to do a book, like a technical book. I never imagined that I was going to do something like this before. And even after I left my job, it wasn't sort of I had thought about it, but it wasn't something that I thought I'll be doing very quickly. But then it arrived at a point where I realized that, you know, I really needed to find something that to get some income again, because I had no sort of income generating businesses for a few months. And I think sort of this process of trying to discover what can I do, right? I mean, what do I have in me that I could sort of do that might, you know, that other people might find important or useful, right, that they would pay something for. That I would also enjoy doing, and I would also enjoy running, right? So it's sort of part of the whole equation, right? And sort of sometimes the mix of using some of your imagination, getting inspired, because again, like, this wasn't something that I was the first one in doing. I saw other developers doing it before me, like on the internet, and I sort of inspired me to ask myself, could this be something that I could do, and something, you know, that I know about? And so, yeah, long story short, I think sort of one of probably the biggest successes I had sort of in this period was I created a book with a co-author, actually, to even like de-risk the whole thing, a friend of mine, called The Good Parts of AWS. Basically, AWS, I worked at AWS. I had been using it before even I joined Amazon. There are some topics that I knew inside out, and I had already been sensing from my social media, from Twitter mostly, that people were interested about my thoughts. I had been tweeting about AWS quite a bit actually, back in 2019. And sort of, I realized that there was some interest, and I chose to do a small bet, I call it. So it was basically, I said, let's dedicate a month to try to dump everything I know about this topic, try to sort of time box it only to that month, and then, you know, test it out. So I put it online without necessarily obsessing about making it something exhaustive, or, you know, the best thing in the world, or the best thing ever written. That it wasn't that ambitious, right? It was just something small that it looked like there was interest in, and I felt that I could do. I enjoy writing, I enjoy expressing myself, and it worked out well. I mean, that book, I released it on Christmas Day of 2019, so it's not even a year. It did over $110,000 on sales. So I sold over 5,000 copies, which sort of, it wasn't just the financial results, right? But it also showed me that this is something that I could do, that I enjoy doing, right? So this is something I learned even about myself. Initially, I imagined myself I'll be running a software as a service business of some sort, mostly, which I'm also doing. That I'm doing lots of different things, but I sort of never realized that this type of work would be something that I would enjoy so much, that it's so viable. And yeah, it's been very fascinating to see evolve.
Yeah, and I think that one of the secrets of what made your book, and also the second one, we'll talk about that, is that maybe sometimes we put ourselves like in a corner, and we just think about the idea we want to be successful. We neglect ourselves. Instead, for example, you are thinking about yourself, so you care about yourself, your
Yep.
life, you put yourself in the center. So, and this is something that a lot of people, also me sometimes, we don't do that, and we should do that.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. I think it's very common in modern culture, like, to sort of see life as just this single path where you're young, you go to school, you go to university, you graduate, and you get a job, then you keep going up the ranks, and there's like this linear thing, right? That it's almost starts almost when you're when you're a child, and just, you know, you just have to go in it. Whereas I think and that works, you know, probably works for many people, or some people. But I think it's a pity that we don't really question whether we're sort of living the lifestyle that we've, based on our own preferences, or whether it's just the one that we happened to be on, when we were born or when we sort of were very young, and and it's really unfortunate, right? And I think, and again, like I like this topic because I fell in that trap as well myself for a period of time. I felt like I was literally doing the same thing, just being driven by default by wherever I was taken.
Yeah, we are
right?
not
And
monk. We're not monks like living on Tibet. Yeah, we are
exactly. No,
software
yeah.
engineers. Yeah.
So no, I think probably when people ask me, like especially young people in their 20s, like ask me what sort of advice do you have, it's sort of this, probably I think this is the most important thing that I wish I realized probably earlier, right? Is that it takes us a long time to discover what we really like and dislike, what type of work arrangements we like doing. Sometimes we think we like something, we imagine ourselves liking something, but then when we do it, we ended up not liking it. Like, so there's lots of I think it's very important, like, to sort of randomize yourself, do different things, because I think an expression that I heard from somebody I follow that I really like if you're on the wrong train, every stop is the wrong stop, right? So basically, if you're just driving somewhere where your destination is the wrong one, no matter where you stop, it's going to be the wrong place. So it's really important to be on the right train and sort of realize where you're going.
Yeah. It happened to me to take a train in the wrong direction, and then I fall asleep, and then I wake up and like, oh, where I am, where am I? Yeah. So so this is a really good analogy. So yeah, thank you so much for hearing your story. This has been
Of course.
I was very silent. I think that I'll watch this video for sure. After editing, I'll watch this again when they're published. Yeah, thank you so much. Can you talk about now for the second book that you published?
So so it's actually it wasn't a book, it was a video course,
Yeah,
actually, right?
video.
Which
Yeah,
is
sorry. I mean,
no problem. And in fact, I wanted to do a book initially, but I think so that basically happened almost the same process. Like basically, in the first one, I was tweeting about AWS, and I was noticing people asking me questions on Twitter and in DMs, and I noticed interest. And then when I released the book about AWS, and sort of, I've always like to be very transparent online. It sort of has helped me gain followers just by explaining and sharing what I was doing. I was sharing a few behind the scenes details about the sales performance of the book. And many people were very surprised. Like in the first 3 weeks or so, it did almost $45,000 in sales. Like, and people were fascinated. Like, they didn't know how that was possible. And I think I was very clear that I was attributing this success to the fact that I had a decent audience on Twitter. Right? So I was talking about what I felt like helped me go from pretty much 0 followers, when I left the job, to getting, back then, I think I had like 12,000 followers or something like that. Right? And I was sharing a lot about what I did that I think helped me build my audience. So long story short, it's pretty much the same thing. After getting asked pretty much the same questions for 3 months, and realizing that I had more to say than I could fit in a single tweet or in a DM response, I said, okay, why don't I try to do something more sophisticated? That's where I sort of share some of the things that I know, some examples. And first I was going to write a book, actually, because I feel more natural. I had never done video before. But then I thought, well, it was a bit of two things. I wanted to go even more just as an experiment, even more extreme about the ROI. Like I said, a book will always take a couple of weeks at least, like even a simple one, just writing things, editing and whatever. Because I imagined that I could probably do something with even less effort, where I just prepare a few slides, I press record, and I just talk over them, right? Just sort of something that I could probably do in a day or two. And this was done mostly for my own amusement. I wanted to really see whether this is something that I could pull off. But I think the video format ended up working even better just because it was the kind of content where sharing the screen was useful. Like I shared my screen and I could give examples. Oh, you still hear me? Yeah, I'm still there. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. I'm listening.
Sorry.
Yeah.
And I think my
Yeah.
headphones, just made some weird noise. Anyway, sorry. So long story short, I gave the assignment again. I did extremely well. I think did even better than the AWS book. It's approaching almost $200,000 in sales, like since April of 2020. Like I think it's doing 180,000, which really surprised me how well it did. So yeah, those are my two info products. I also have a small software as a service business that I started back when I left the job called Userbase. It's not that successful yet. It's doing about $500 in monthly revenue. But it's one of those things that will likely take longer to pick up. So it's something that I'm sort of alternating attention between these things and that as well.
Yeah, congratulations on both the book and the video course, and I think that the people, also me, I really love that this transparency approach. Honestly, sometimes I log on Twitter, I go on your account and I check if you have some upgrades. So I don't know why, because it's really
no, it's inspiring. I think that's the thing, and this is what I do it because I know it inspired me as well, and I know it's useful. And sometimes it's inspiring, not just because you want to copy people, but I think sometimes you see somebody doing something, especially if it's non-conventional, right? Because if you just take a regular 9-to-5 job somewhere, it's good to share what you learned, but it's something that many people know what it takes or sort of how to do those kinds of things. But if you're making a living of something that's not very conventional, I think it just inspires people to say, well, can I do something like this, something similar about some different topic? Right? It's really, really inspiring. And I think this is what one of the main ingredients you need, right, to sort of take the plunge and do something like this. It's like you get some inspiration, whether you come up, you get the inspiration yourself, you're thinking in the shower, or you just see somebody on Twitter or on social media, right? So it helps.
Usually I think a lot because sometimes usually I work in the mornings, so I take some ideas. Even this series is an idea of me working, and honestly now I'm really inspired by your story, by hearing that for you. So if I ever do something about something, I'll credit you because you are really inspiring me in real time now. So
good.
I
Good to hear.
think that I think that you are inspiring a lot of people that are watching this video now. As you say, to do something, you did something not conventional. So this is what attracts people, because if you say, okay, I earn a lot of money because I work so much for this big great company, the people say, okay, but it's even maybe it's also maybe harder maybe to share things because maybe you work for a company. It's harder to share some secrets about the companies. What are you doing? So it's hard because, for example, I work for the European Space Agency, so it's hard for me to share what I do exactly.
Absolutely.
I don't want to go to jail. So even for example, in your case, you can just make a screenshot of what you do.
Yep.
It's easier. People, they feel you. So you create a real contact with people. They want to know about how you did that. They want to know. They want to be inspired or copy you. I don't know. Sometimes the line is not. It's always something in the middle. Sometimes. But what you did has been really great. I really wish you the best luck to be even more successful, and then you double the earnings every time you publish a new product. You double the income. So I really hope that. So thank you so much, Daniel. And so can you tell us a bit about I don't know, some future plans? So what are your plans for next year? And
So I don't have anything concrete yet. I think, and this is sort of, again, something that I'm sort of enjoying in this new arrangement, is that I think it's fascinating. I was telling a friend of mine that probably if you look at my whole 2020 year, it's almost finished now, you probably, I might, like if you look at the productive time, it was probably maybe just a month or two, right? It was lots of it. I wasn't just necessarily wasting my time intentionally, but just wandering about, I call it. I just sort of randomizing myself, sometimes starting something for a day and then just giving up on it. Like I do a lot of exploration. So I'm sort of still in that period. I'm in that period again. I'm now just sort of thinking about and testing ideas in my head. I like to do another info product. Like I think of some sort. I'm not sure yet, but probably about the topic. Something that we talked a little bit about, right? About the topic of lifestyle design, I call it. Basically, I have some ideas that I think have helped me. They're not necessarily my own original ideas. Like many of them I heard them from other people, but I've lived them myself, so I can at least say that I've lived them and sort of what I learned about them. So I think this might be something that I might do. I'm still not 100% sure whether there's the opportunity or whatever, and so I still sort of exploring it. But that might happen. But apart from that, yeah, sort of I think working in software again and doing something software based is still something that I enjoy a lot. I still sort of almost continuously thinking about software ideas that I might end up doing. So yeah, unfortunately, nothing concrete yet, but I think if I were to, but again, like if I were to generalize what I want to do, probably what I want to do is just keep this current arrangement. So I'm more conservative than ambitious. I'm more making sure that I can survive in this sense, right? That I can sort of keep my life this way, more than trying to shoot for the moon and sort of,
and I think that your mindset is perfect to approach the 2021, in my opinion.
So. Hopefully, yes.
So and if you ever do something and you want to talk about that, you can come back whenever you want. You can send me a message. You will always be welcome here, because and honestly, I think that you are one of the 2 or 3 people that I follow that are currently not developers. So so there's a reason for that. So I really wanted you to be here.
Awesome.
Your mindset is really an example and an inspiration for many people, and also for me. Your approach is really different. I don't know, it's almost philosophical. I don't know.
No, it is. I think it's something that I have been thinking on for a long time, right? Again, just because I figured it's really important to live a good life, and I realized that
and also the thing that you have passed through these things, so you're not someone, as I said, someone far, maybe in the east, some monks thinking about in their temples. Absolutely. So they maybe that style is a little bit far from our but yours it's closer. So this is maybe why there are so many people that are following you. They want to, I don't know, be like you or do something something like you. So really wish you best luck for everything. This has been
thank you.
So good
Thank
to
you,
have you here.
Same.
So I still just remember one thing. Like you talked about the difference in earnings. Like you can earn less money and still have maybe a better life. You made also some calculations, I remember, about that. Can you talk about that, because that really that was really interesting. Then we can
I think so. I think there's a phenomenon, right, in life where I call it the non-linearity effect. Right? It's basically we tend to assume that something that is good in one level, in one dose, if you increase it, is going to be even better, right? And I think this is rarely the case in almost nothing, right? I mean, It's not the case in, you know, in medicine, right? There's a good dose. If you take more, it will likely harm you. If you take less, it will likely do nothing. Even drinking water, right? I mean, if you take a lot, it could actually harm you, right? So, and I think money and ambition and many other things have a similar effect as well. Almost like I mean, people sometimes think it's ridiculous, right? But money, I think at some point, you know, very quickly, much faster than many people realize, I believe, right? The returns start to diminish, and probably if you accumulate even more, probably it will even start to harm you in indirect ways. You start worrying about losing it. You know, you start missing other opportunities, that you start having bigger headaches. And I think one of the things we don't realize, right, is that in our sort of pursuit of our ambition to always keep getting promoted, keep learning more, keep sort of earning more, keep doing always more of everything, right? Because it's sort of culturally we're sort of encouraged to keep pushing, keep growing, keep always doing more. We sort of tend to forget that you know, our lifestyle is something that's very complicated, our life, right? And you know, I think it's very obvious that I think there's many of cases, mine as well, right? I mean, I'm making significantly less money than I was doing 2 years ago, but I wouldn't trade my lifestyle at all. That's what it was 2 years ago. So I think there's plenty of evidence that you could sort of make less. You know, you're trading things off, right? But sometimes you're not even trading things off again. Like sometimes it's just things in the excess almost become harmful, right? So it's really just it's important to just realize, right, where less is more.
Yeah, and there will always be someone richer than you, which has a longer
Exactly,
boat than you, a better apartment. Yeah,
yeah.
so yeah, so
Absolutely. No, and somebody that even and somebody that works even harder than you. Like this is another interesting thing. You can never outwork everyone. Right? So that's also another sort of dangerous approach where you think like you're just going to outwork everyone else, whether all your colleagues or all your competitors or whatever. Right? So I think it's better to just take a different strategy where you're not even playing that game at all, right? And you're just doing something different.
yeah, and we'll see in the long run, because you are still pretty young, so
Yeah.
we'll see in the long run.
Yeah,
Maybe
but it's not even, we're not even playing the same game, right? So
yeah.
yeah, I mean, I'm actually, to be honest, like I'm happy that there are, you know, the Elon Musks and the Jeff Bezoses of the world that are highly ambitious and they're willing to sacrifice their life, you know, to build electric cars and do magnificent things. I'm just not playing that game, right? I realized, I mean, I completely exited that type of or anything resembling that type of approach to something very different, right? I have no illusions that I'm going to be doing something and, you know, changing the world or doing something like that they are doing. I'm just sort of I'm enjoying keeping things small, just focusing on the things that I believe are important to me, and just trying to arrange my life in such a way that I'm resilient to random things that might not be in my control, right? So that I can have peace of mind, do things that I like, and eliminate as much of the things that I don't like.
Yeah, and they are simple concepts, but sometimes it's hard to tell them, and sometimes it's hard to accept them. Yeah, in my opinion, what you are doing right, because you are doing something right. In my opinion, you are giving the value to the right things, which is kind of simple sometimes, but sometimes it's also hard to give value to our lives. Yeah, maybe we are saying something also stupid, but this is
no.
yeah,
I
we
think
should
it's
just
modernity, right? I think it's just you know, when you I tweeted about this recently, right? It's sort of we've been designed something, so it's to be hunter gatherers, like to be cave people, like living in the forest somewhere, right? And just doing small things, building our houses, hunting food, caring for our family, you know, sometimes doing some exploration to increase our chances of, you know, being agile. And I think modern life has changed so many things, right? I mean, all the structure, all the sort of, you know, there's definitely the good thing about being optimistic that you can do many things. Like I don't want to go back to, obviously, to the cave people era, right? I enjoy all the luxuries of the modern world and all the good things. But I think we sometimes lose sight of what really makes us happy, what really makes us satisfied, and what again are the things that sort of give us meaning and give us purpose in life, which I'm almost certain, I'm pretty convinced that for the vast majority of people, you know, getting that next promotion or getting that sort of job title or whatever, you know, for the vast majority of people, it will feel good for a week or two, maybe a month, and then it wears off, right? And then you start chasing the next thing, and it just, you never really feel, you know, actually, I think it's almost an anti-climax, right? You arrive there and you say, oh, this is it, right? I mean, I was expecting something else.
Yeah.
And I think this is, whether it's just status, job titles, big projects, even money, right? I got extremely lucky. Definitely not my. I was just at the right place, right time. When I was at Amazon, like the stock price was growing a lot, and just the way things were, I managed to save a lot of money. But even there, right? I mean, it's just a number in the account. Sure, I mean, some amount of money is important. Otherwise, your life will be extremely hard. But I think once you clear that line, you wouldn't want to sacrifice many important things to just add another zero or whatever. That it would be quite foolish.
Of course. We are talking about that extra money that we don't really need sometimes. Sometimes we spend money just like that. Just I don't know.
Exactly, and that's what you're sacrificing for it, like, because it's not like I'm intentionally rejecting money or you know, or something like that, right? But it's like what are you giving up, right? Are you just giving up your entire life, like 40 years of your life doing something that you dislike, or that, like, you know, you feel miserable doing? I mean, that's quite a bad bargain, I would say.
As you said, the quality of our lives, maybe, it matters more. They are really simple concepts, but sometimes it's hard even to talk about them. Because you have a really clear idea, so I really like that. So I think this is also why you get so much traction. Also, I reply to your tweet very often, because so thank you really for being here.
Cool.
Yes.
Awesome.
This is really a different interview. We have not talked about frameworks on JavaScript, or which one is the best JavaScript framework, but I think this will be very useful too. So thank you again, Daniel. And whenever you want, if you want to talk again in the future, if you do something else, I'll keep following you. We'll see. I wish you the best for everything. So
thank you, Francesco. Bye.
Wait a second.